Welcome back to another English lesson. Thank you so much for clicking on this English lesson. I know there are a lot of good English teachers out there, and you chose me. In today's English lesson, we are going to talk about bugs and insects and a few things that go with those terms. Now, I'm not a scientist. So when I hear bug and insect, I think they're basically the same thing. If this was a science channel, we could talk about the differences, but I think to everyday Americans, bugs, insects, they're pretty much the same thing. So in this English lesson, we will talk about 10 different names for bugs and insects. I keep getting a message on my computer. I hope that did not mess up our English lesson. Bugs and insects, their names. And then we will talk about some verbs that we might use for what bugs and insects do. And then we're going to talk about some ways you can get rid of bugs and insects. Like if you have a problem with them, get rid is another way to say like kill them. And then finally, we will talk about phrasal verbs and common expressions we might use when talking about bugs or using the names of these bugs or insects. For example, like to bug someone, or there's a bug going around, or they're dropping like flies. So, lots of different things for us to cover. Let's start with talking about some of these names that we have for these insects. The first one, mosquito. Mosquito. I'm almost sure mosquito comes from the Portuguese. I think we stole that name from the Portuguese. So let's get a definition for mosquito, and then I will use it in a sentence. So a mosquito is a small flying insect that bites people and animals. I also think you could use the verb stung. So if you get bit by a mosquito, like if the mosquitoes are out, it's another way to say there are a lot of mosquitoes. For example, where I live, when the sun goes down, the mosquitoes come out. So luckily this year, it hasn't been too bad, but some years the mosquitoes can be pretty bad and they will bite you and they will take your blood. But I think we could use sting. Oh, a mosquito just stung me. Past tense, stung. A mosquito bit me on the arm last night. Luckily, that is just an example sentence. That is not true. AI made this picture for me. There is a small typo there, but you can see there are some wings. The mosquito has some eyes. The mosquito has some legs. But the thing I want to talk about is the proboscis. And that is definitely a scientific term, proboscis. I think most people will just say the stinger, especially when we talk about the bee. They have stingers, but they also have proboscises. Is that the plural of proboscis? But the thing that will hurt you on the mosquito, we call the proboscis or just like the stinger. Now, we also have a housefly in English. So, of course, we have the verb fly, means like floating in the air, but we also have an animal. Sometimes we just call this thing a fly. Sometimes you will hear it called a housefly. But it's a common insect with wings and it buzzes. And when I say buzzes, it goes something like this. Bzz, bzz. We'll talk about bees. They also buzz. There was a fly in the kitchen and it kept landing on my food. Pretty gross. In my house, we do our best to keep out the bugs. We keep the doors shut. And if we don't shut the door, we'll have a screen on the window, and that helps keep the bugs out. But it keeps the fresh air flowing into our house. So a screen. Maybe I should do a whole lesson on screens in English because you are watching me on a screen, but you can also have a screen on a window. It lets the fresh air come in, but it doesn't let the bugs come in. All right, I've talked about this animal a few times. A bee. Yeah, we have a letter B, A, B, C, but we also have the insect or the bug called a bee. And in the United States, during the month of May, a lot of people will not mow their lawns. They will not cut their grass. It's called No Mow May for the bees, so that the bees can find the flowers. We use the verb pollinate. So they will land on a flower and then they land on another flower and it helps make more flowers. We call that pollinating. So a bee is a flying insect that makes honey and can sting. So for bees, we never say a bee bit me. We will say that the bee stung me. Past tense of sting. The bee flew around the flowers in the garden. So not a sentence about bees stinging. We need the bees. We need to save the bees. That's a thing in English you might hear. Save the bees. Now we also have a wasp. I think these things are a bit more aggressive. They are more likely to sting you, but they still pollinate flowers. They're still very important. A stinging insect that looks like a bee, but can be more aggressive. He got stung by a wasp while eating outside. And to be honest, if I see something flying that looks like a bee or it looks like a wasp, I probably can't tell the difference. I'll probably just call it a bee. But we do. And we also have hornets, which are very similar to wasps and bees, and they're pretty aggressive too, those hornets. Next one, gnats. Gnats. Yes, I know there is a G, the beginning of that word. I don't know why. You know we do that in English sometimes. We will just put letters in words, but we don't actually pronounce them. So gnats, these things can be a real nuisance. If something is a nuisance, it bothers you or it bugs you. We'll talk about bugging a little bit later as a verb. But a gnat is a very small flying insect, often seen in groups. Now look at this guy. He is just being absolutely attacked by wasps. Let's get a sentence that uses, gnats. He's getting attacked by gnats. Very different. If you were being attacked by wasps, that would hurt. I mean, you could probably go to the hospital if you were stung by enough wasps. The gnats, they're not going to really hurt you. They might bite you a little bit. It might hurt a little bit. But the bigger problem is that they will probably get into your eyes. Real nuisance. Let's get that sentence. A cloud of gnats flew around my face at the park. Yeah, definitely not fun. We do have gnats, in the day and at night. A lot of times when I mow my lawn, luckily my brother, he owns a business and my son works for him. So now they will often mow my lawn so I don't have to. But when I mow my lawn, I'm often attacked by gnats. Not very fun. It doesn't hurt. It's just not fun. Ticks. That's another thing you have to worry about where I live. It could be like the most dangerous animal. If a tick burrows into your skin, and we will talk about burrowing in a minute, it can be pretty bad. You can get something we call Lyme disease. So we have to be very careful if we are walking in the woods that we do a tick check after. And a tick check is just looking at your body to make sure you don't have any ticks on you. Let's get the definition for what a tick is. A tiny bug that attaches to skin and sucks blood. We checked for ticks after our walk in the woods. And the one that we have to worry about around here is called the deer tick. So we have a lot of ticks, but the most dangerous one that can give you Lyme disease is something called the deer tick. Dragonfly. Now this thing looks dangerous. It's not dangerous at all. It even sounds dangerous, right? Dragonfly. But it's a large flying bug with clear wings. Yeah, you can see right through the wings. We might call them transparent. That is a very fancy word that means you can see through it. Windows are transparent. The dragonfly hovered over the pond. And we'll talk about hovering in a minute. Not right now, but hovering. We'll talk about how helicopters hover, but dragonflies are very cool. I'm not sure if you have them where you live. We have them where I live. I like them quite a bit. They look scary, but they are harmless. Unfortunately, where I live, we don't have as many fireflies as we used to. And a firefly is a bug that lights up at night. You will also hear them called lightning bugs in English. We caught fireflies in a jar during the summer night. I'll make this picture a little bigger. And you can see these children are catching fireflies and putting them into jars. When I was younger, I would go out at night with my brother and sister, and we would catch fireflies. But unfortunately, there aren't as many fireflies around now than there were like 40 years ago, 35 years ago. Fireflies. Beautiful little bugs. I wish there were more of them. This is not a beautiful bug. Stink bug. It's exactly what it sounds like. It will stink. We'll talk about it if you try to crush it. So when you want to take stink bugs out of your house, you have to be very careful. Do not crush it because your whole house will stink. A stink bug is a bug that smells bad if you crush it. Don't squish. Squish and crush, pretty much the same thing. Don't squish it. It's a stink bug. Don't want to do that at all. But you can squish ants if you want to. To be honest, the only bug I have to worry about in my house during the spring are ants. Yeah, it could be worse. I'm glad I don't have to worry about anything too bad. I never get snakes in my house. I live in a place where it's fairly cool, but ants are something that we have to worry about. Ants are small insects that live in colonies. So a group of ants living together, you can call that a colony, and they work together. We saw a line of ants carrying food to their nest. And I guess ants are some of the strongest animals on Earth. Compared to their little bodies, they don't weigh a lot, but they can carry a lot. So the next thing I want to talk about is this. Different spelling. So we have a bug called an ant, but you can also have an ant that's a person. And we actually have two different pronunciations for ant. You might see or hear it ant, like the bug, or you might hear it aunt, which where I live in New England, that's how most people will say it, aunt. Maybe we should get a definition on what an ant or an aunt is. She is a woman who is the sister of your mother or father or the wife of your uncle. That can be a little confusing. But maybe you studied family names in English already. Aunt, aunt. My aunt or my aunt is coming to visit us this weekend. Now what I would like to talk about are some things that bugs do. Some verbs that we might use when talking about bugs. For example, infested. Now, when I said earlier, I have a problem with ants in my house in the spring. I have a few here and there. I might see one or two a day, maybe not even. But if your house is infested with ants or other types of bugs, it's a very different story. Take a look at that picture. I don't know, maybe I need to put my glasses on, but it looks like, oh yeah, in the picture, those things are cockroaches. A bug we did not talk about, but a very nasty bug. When I used to live in the United States, in a state called Alabama, it was warmer down there, and we had problems with cockroaches. I'll take ants any day. So often in warm places, you might see cockroaches. Your house might not be infested with cockroaches. That would be a very different thing. Infested means to fill a place with bugs in a bad way. The old apartment was infested with cockroaches. And a little later on, we'll talk about a person you can call that can hopefully help you get rid of those cockroaches or any bugs. I lived in a house one time. It wasn't infested, but every few days or so, I saw a few ladybugs. Now, let's talk about ladybugs for a second because a couple weeks ago, I bought some ladybugs because we have some plants at my school and they were actually infested with parasites. So parasites are things that they're little animals that try to kill other things. These parasites, I think the guy called them aphids. They were killing a plant. So we looked to see that ladybugs are like natural pest killers. And we bought some ladybugs. It didn't work. The ladybugs flew away. But yeah, I think I'm showing some pictures of ladybugs as I'm talking, the ones that we bought. Burrow is the next verb I would like to talk about. Burrow. That means to dig and live underground. But you remember those ticks we talked about? They can also burrow into your skin. So there is a tick, very fat tick, who's probably eaten somebody's blood, crawling on the skin. But if you see that head disappear into the skin, we could also call that burrowing into your skin. Might be kind of hard to say, burrowing. Here's a sentence that uses burrow. Some bugs burrow into the soil to stay warm. Remember earlier, I talked about hovering? Hovering. So we have a couple different ways we can use hover, but it means to stay in one spot in the air. I think I have a picture of dragonflies hovering. Let's read this sentence right here. Dragonflies hover over lily pads. Those green things in the water, we will call those lily pads. But also, you could have this. The teacher hovered over my shoulder to see if I was cheating on the test. So that teacher is not in the air, but they are pretty much going back and forth, looking over their shoulder to see if they're cheating. The dragonfly hovered over the pond. I also have a picture of a helicopter here. So helicopters can also hover. That's how you say that word, hover. Another verb you might hear when talking about bugs is flapping. So in the picture, you might see those dragonflies flapping their wings so that they can hover. And that just means to move wings up and down. The butterfly flapped its wings and flew away. And just in case you don't know what a butterfly is, I'll put a butterfly right there for you. Now, let's talk about how you can get rid of these bugs. So, bug prevention and tools. To prevent something, it means you don't let it happen. So, maybe you prevent these bugs from getting in your house, or if they are there, you prevent them from getting around even more. One thing you could have outside of your house would be what we call a bug zapper. That is a machine that kills bugs using light and electricity. And if it's a really big bug, you can even hear that bug getting zapped. So the bug zapper is a noun, but we could say that the bug has been zapped. It's another way to say it's been killed. Let's look at this sentence that uses both the noun and the verb. The bug zapper made a loud sound when it zapped a fly. But maybe if your house is infested with bugs, maybe cockroaches, you could call an exterminator. Calling an exterminator, that means hire someone, a professional. It's their job. They know what they're doing. Hire someone to kill bugs in your home. We had to call an exterminator to get rid of the ants. So, like I said before, yeah, sometimes I will have ants in my house. We just use a spray that usually gets rid of them. If it was really bad, we would probably have to call an exterminator, but luckily it hasn't gotten that bad yet. So let's talk about some idioms, some phrasal verbs, and common expressions that you might hear when talking about bugs. So I'll either say the word bug or I'll use an idiom that also uses the name of a bug, like maybe a fly. What if somebody is bugging you? Well, that means to annoy someone. Take a look at this picture. You have a man, it looks like they may be in an office. He might be trying to get some work done, and this woman keeps coming over. Like she is hovering over him, but she's probably also annoying him. Like, I'm trying to get some work done. Can you please stop bugging me? Let's get a sentence that uses bug. My little brother kept bugging me while I was doing homework. You might also hear a bug when talking about somebody getting sick. Like there's a bug going around. It just means people are getting sick. I didn't go to school today. There's a bug going around. So maybe you don't want to get sick, so you stayed at home, but clearly, look at this. You can see some lockers. So this looks like a high school. A couple clocks on the wall. I'm not sure why they need two clocks there. AI did make this, but it does look like a bug is going around. And if a bug is going around, you might say that people are dropping like flies. If they're getting really sick, it means when people or many people get sick or give up. During the race, runners were dropping like flies in the heat. So maybe 100 people started the race, but maybe only 30 finished. People were dropping like flies because the race was so hard. This has actually happened at my school a couple years ago. Not COVID, it was just a regular bug, cold, flu, something like that. One time, I had 5 students get dismissed. So they were so sick, they had to call home so their parents could come pick them up because they got sick. And I said, they're dropping like flies. 5 people in one day getting sick. There was definitely a bug going around, and my students were dropping like flies. We also have something that parents might say to their kids right before they put them into bed. We might use the phrasal verb tuck in. So the parents in that picture are tucking in their child. It just means putting them to bed, making sure they feel safe and all that. But one thing my parents used to say to me that really didn't make me feel too safe is don't let the bed bugs bite. It's just a joke. It's a playful bedtime phrase. So you might hear something like this: good night, sleep tight, don't let the bed bugs bite. I don't think I ever said that to my own children because I didn't want to scare them. That is it. A rather long English lesson. Congratulations, you made it to the end. Don't forget, I am offering one-on-one private conversations to help you with your English. Check out the comments if you would like more information. And if you are watching this in June, use 10 off to get 10% off our conversation. And right down there are a whole bunch of English lessons I think you will like. There's one English lesson where I take every way we use the word swing in English and explain it. Thanks so much for watching. See you next time.